Hey y'all, welcome to Adventures with Aggie, brought to you by the Ryan Martin Foundation. Today we have a super special episode, as this is our 150th episode of Adventures with Aggie. We're featuring another Dromos agency athlete named Mohamed Lahna. He's a para-triathlete, a cyclist, a swimmer, and so much more. Please welcome Mo.
Well, Mohamed, how are you doing today?
Very good. Yourself?
I'm good. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited to learn about all the crazy things you've done that I could never imagine doing myself. But I guess first, could we just start with some background into who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So my name is Mohamed. I was born and raised in Casablanca, Morocco. I was born with a condition called PFFD. Basically, I'm missing my femur part of my hip on the right side. It was a big shock for my family. My parents didn't know what to expect, but they just went ahead and raised me like my other siblings. So they were very tough on me, which was very good. I grew up playing soccer like any other kids, using crutches in the streets of Casablanca, and then growing up, I start through like my dad's connections, and he's always trying to figure out things for me. Start swimming, and then got my first prosthesis with the knee when I was 24. Like before, like growing up, I used either like crutches or like those artisanal prostheses made of wood and leather. Like it's unbelievable, but it's the 90s. This is what I was wearing. So once I got that prosthesis, it just changed my life. I started cycling for the first time at the age of 24, and then started doing mountain bike in Morocco on the Atlas Mountain, and then went to France for another cycling event and heard about triathlon. I got curious about triathlon, and I fell in love with that sport. And back then we didn't have any event in Morocco, so I had to travel abroad to do that. So I had to travel to France, other countries in Europe. And at one point, I just made the bold move to quit my job that I was working for 7 years, and then moved to France to pursue my athletic career. And then I spent like 2 years in France, and then moved to the US. And the journey kept going with sports and the love of triathlon. So I love triathlon so much that I tried all the distances, from sprint, Olympic, half Ironman, Xterra, Xtreme triathlons, all of them. And then switched my focus to the Olympics and Paralympics. So I trained for the Rio Paralympics in 2016 in triathlon, and I got a bronze there. And I live here in California with my wife and 3 kids.
That's so many things. I have so many questions for you. You've also been all over the world, which is so cool. So cool that this sport too kind of took you to all of those places everywhere. And it started in Morocco, which is so exciting. But I guess going back, how did you pick triathlon to be your thing? I feel like that's just such a daunting sport in general. How did this become your sport?
It's just coincidence. I as I mentioned, I started with swimming when I was young, a little bit, and then start cycling when I was 24, and meeting with other people. And again, sport allowed me to travel for the first time, like even within Morocco, like at the age of 24, when I got my first prosthesis and I started cycling. I went for the first visit to the Atlas Mountain for the first time in my life. My parents were very modest, so we weren't able to travel. So just by cycling, I was able to visit Morocco, my country, and then other countries like France, Europe, Tunisia, other countries. And like just meeting people, seeing what people do, and then just the curiosity. I remember when I was talking to this guy in France about triathlon, because I was asking him what he does, and he said triathlon, and I didn't know what that word mean. And he said like swim, bike, run, and I knew how to swim, and I was like surprised. I didn't know that sport existed before. And I remember because back then I didn't speak French very fluently. I asked him to write the word triathlon on a piece of paper for me. So I went back home and I looked up Google and I started to learn more about the sport. and I just, the curiosity of it, I want to do it. And it took me like 2 years between the time that I knew about it and the time I did my first triathlon, because I had to figure out how to do the run part. There was a lot of complication in that part too. And I don't know, my first triathlon was in Tunisia. And I remember I didn't have the wetsuit. The weather was so cold and I got so sick. I remember finishing the swim part and walking to the transition, and I vomited like twice on the carpet. And this is how I remember my first triathlon. And after the second time I vomited, I felt so good, and I just kept going. I finished my race, and it was a good memory for me. Yeah.
And it was a good memory. That's not where I thought you were going to end the story.
Well, I mean, it was a good memory because I finished my first triathlon. So
that's good. That's good. I couldn't imagine after that saying, yeah, I want to do another one, right? After you do that to your body. How long do you usually wait in between races?
So it's so funny because the early years of my career, I was so curious about the sport. Like I just go internet and you don't know anything about triathlon, and you just put triathlon and you hear all this world, and you start seeing the word Ironman a lot coming up, because Ironman is more like is the icon of triathlon. And I just like starting to read about triathlon, and Ironman keeps coming. And I just did I started in 2008, my first triathlon, and I already started planning for my first Ironman in 2009. And it was like I did 2 triathlon, and then I'm going to Ironman straight. I jumped all the distances straight to Ironman. And in Ironman, like if you ask any triathlete, able body or Paralympic athlete, when they finish the race, they say, okay, this is over. I'm not doing this anymore. That's it. I'm done with Ironman. But you wait 1 week later, and they start signing up for another race. It's just you go through so much pain, and it's so hard, it's so long, but you finish and you get that feeling, that adrenaline of finishing that journey of, I don't know, 14, 15 hours on the race. And then you hate it so much, you sleep on it, you wake up next day, I did that. And then 2 days later, you are looking for the next race. It just, I don't know how to explain that, but this is what's happened to me so many times. Yeah.
It's just because you love it so much, right? I don't know if I would feel the same after finishing an Ironman. I might feel defeated and want to sleep for 5 years before doing my next one. That's crazy. Yeah. I want to ask you, what is the difference between an Ironman and the Norseman? And how did you kind of, I guess, change your training and stuff for these? Because the Norseman website looks kind of crazy. And I think they say the word extreme on every single page. So how is that different for you?
So Ironman is kind of straightforward, the distances, the swim, bike, run, they kind of it's elevations, the running part, all are kind of standard. Some Ironmans are kind of difficult, but on average they are straightforward. But the Norseman, we have you start to do with the swim, you just jump off the boat in the fjord, very cold water at 5 a.m. in the morning, and then from the 180 kilometers bike is a lot of climbing. You go up and down 3 or 4 times, a lot of altitude, a lot of climbing. And then the run part is the first 25 kilometers kind of flat, and then you start climbing to the top of a mountain there. And what makes it very challenging and extreme is all the weather, the climbing, the run part, but also there is only 280 people in the start, or 300 people, and then only 150 people go to the finish line. So if you are not with the top 150, you don't get to finish in the top of the mountain. So and then the last 10K is hiking, is climbing the mountain. It's not even running. So I remember in 2014, I tried it for the first time, and I really enjoyed it. And I trained very hard for it. And then I missed the slot by 2 people, 2 people ahead of me, and then they cut off. So I wasn't able to go to the top of the mountain. And then I came back again in 2017. I learned a lot of lessons from the first race. I knew my strength and my weaknesses, and I trained for that. The run, I knew the run I'm gonna be slow anyway, especially the mountain part. We have this last 6 kilometers called Zombie Hill, where it's like zigzag up. It's crazy. Like you can't even run. So I knew I'm gonna be slow. So I put all my eggs on the swim and the bike. So I had a really fast swim and even faster bike. And I just put all my efforts and my strength on those two parts. And then I kept pushing as much as I could for the run. Once I passed the cutoff of the 150 people, I was just going so easy, so slow, taking pictures. I didn't care anymore because I knew I'm gonna finish. So the good thing about that, but the Norseman is also like you need to have your own crew with you because they need to like be with you going up the mountains because they need to provide nutrition and all that stuff. So my wife was part of those two events, and having her with me, it was very good. So I loved it so much, and it was good to share with my family. My wife and my brother were with me.
That's so cool. I think hearing you talk about it is like so crazy because this is like, I've talked to swimmers, I've talked to cyclists, and I've spoken to runners, and you do all three of those. And I can't be good at one of those things, much less all three. You know, this is what I'm processing while I'm hearing you talk about running up mountains and jumping off of boats into fjords and stuff. That's so crazy. And it's so, so cool.
I think just the curiosity keep pushing me to do these things. Sometimes we make it happen. Sometimes it failed, but I think over the years, just I don't care if I fail or not. I just give it a try and have fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to shift a little bit into Paralympics just for a bit. Spoken to lots of Paralympians on the show. I don't think I've ever spoken to cyclists before that's done Paralympic cycling. I saw your post. I'm so excited that it's going to be in 2024, right? That's awesome. But how can you just give us some highlights, I guess, from your Paralympic experience? Obviously, congrats on your bronze. That's so exciting. But yeah, Paralympic story time, maybe? Is that okay?
Yeah. So the Paralympics are very special. Every 4 years, you put a lot of training, a lot of time of family. You put everything on hold, like your career, everything, to prepare for this event. And it's like every 4 years. So in 2016, I prepared for triathlon, and I was able to get bronze in Rio. I was so excited. And for me back then, with my wife, we had 2 kids back then, and we say, you know what? I think that's it. I mean, before going to Rio, we say, I think after Rio, we're done with the games. And then, like even few months later, I start putting the idea with my wife to go for another one, and we want to make it like even more successful and try to go for gold in triathlon again. So in 2017, I convinced my wife to move with me to Colorado Springs to train there, and and she was, I still can't believe it. She went with me. So we went there. Super excited, training the Olympic Center in Colorado Springs. Great team, the USA Para-Triathlon resident team for the first time, and we had a good time. It took me almost a year to get adjusted to the altitude, but after that, I started feeling good about my times and all that stuff. And then in 2018, the IPC said that my category would not be in Tokyo. So I was a big surprise. I was like, that was my lowest in years. Like I was in very bad place at that time because we made all this sacrifice to move to Colorado Springs and train for Tokyo in triathlon. So, I mean, after a few weeks of mourning, we made the switch to cycling. So I started doing only cycling, and you think like in triathlon we do swim, bike, run, it would be easy transition to cycling, but cycling by itself, it's different discipline. A lot of things that I had to learn, especially on track, because we were doing the training for the velodrome. and it's like starting from zero, like how to ride a bike, how to manage the gears, how to do everything. So it was a good learning experience for me. I really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I wasn't fast enough to make the US team. So, but it was a good experience for me. I really loved it. We moved back to California, and I, like 2 months before the games, I got an invite from the Moroccan team to go to Tokyo in cycling. So I did my best, and I went there and raced. And we thought that that's it. It's over for me for the games. Just go with adventure and do triathlon. Also do some adventure with my friends Andre and Lucas. We're doing other big events like in other like we're doing these crazy things on the side. I can talk about it later. But 2 weeks ago, Paris committee said that my category will be back to Paris. So like it's like you lose all the hope to go again in triathlon, but again they okay, well, come back, we have your category back. So I'm trying to with my wife and the kids and work, try to manage the schedule and prepare for that. I love the USA Triathlon. They are great like federation. They have a good team there, so we're trying to work out a good plan to prepare for Paris 24. And I think this time is going to be my last Paralympics for sure. I'm getting old and slow, so I need to take advantage and work hard for this one. And again, it's going to be a journey of 3 years, building up block by block. 3 years of training for an hour race. It seems crazy, but there is a lot of reward. It's something that we bring to our life when you work on something, when you have long-term goals, and you don't see the result right away, but something is going to come later on, whether your education, building your career, or investing or anything. So it's a long-term goal, and I'm super excited to start that journey. And also, as I mentioned, with my two friends, Andre and Lucas, we're trying to this project called Lowest Highest. So we are trying to connect the lowest point to the highest point in every continent. It's a project that it's crazy, and it's like so. Paralympic athletes or athletes with disability, they always do these things, like do the first Ironman, do this event, and we are following like able body who did this before. So we are trying to do this thing that has never been done before by anybody, and we try to be the first people to do it and give the example that we can lead new things. So, and also here in the US, like people with disability, like they are championed in all aspects. Like we value them, they have a lot of resource, but in some parts of the world, like it's still like it's very challenging. It's very challenging to have a disability to live and try to grow. So we try to raise awareness and maybe show some stories around the world. So 2 years ago we did South America. We went from Patagonia all the way to Aconcagua. It's like 5 weeks cycling and climbing the mountain, and then now we are working on the next one. We have some issues with COVID and travel restriction, but we're gonna try to make it happen very soon.
That's a crazy project, and that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So yeah, I guess countries are COVID's holding you up a little bit with travels and stuff. Do you have plans for the next location or where you're going next?
I mean, we had planned to do Africa like this January, but the news, we had some security issues in Ethiopia. There have unfortunately some issues there. So we had to postpone that last minute. So we're trying to plan maybe next year for Europe. We're still working on that. It's crazy. Like the most like between Africa and Europe, they are doable and we can go right away and do it. But every continent has its own challenges: the logistics, safety, the number of countries. So we have a lot of, every country is different, different rules for COVID, So it just makes things like very challenging for us and for our team.
That's amazing. Do you think any of your three kids, right, are they going to take after you and do these long biking, cycling adventures and things one day?
I don't know. I mean, I learned that I was the first one in my family to do this, and okay. I'm just gonna like introduce them to as much sport as possible, as like cycling, swimming, anything they want, and then they're gonna make their choices, whatever they like. If you don't love the sport, you're not gonna enjoy it. So we'll see what they're gonna love.
For sure. We'll see. One day, maybe they'll take after their dad and be Ironman champions all around the world.
I hope so.
That'd be so fun. I love it. Cool. Let's see. Just a few questions for you to kind of wrap up in our end section here. I guess I love asking this question to all of my athletes that have done so many different, I guess, accomplishments and successes in their sports. But what have you learned about yourself through competing in triathlons?
I think setting up goals help you help you achieve that goal. For me, I remember starting with that small event in the Atlas Mountain when we did like 500 kilometers. And once I finished that, and I was so excited, so happy, I didn't want to just keep floating and do things like this. I went ahead and I set up another goal bigger than the previous one. And I think starting slowly, like with a challenging goal, but reasonable in the beginning, because it's very important to gain the confidence over time. And once you gain the confidence, you can go even bigger. And I think setting up goals and not be afraid of failure. You don't care about what people think of you, or especially now in these days with social media, where we see just successful stories, we don't see the failure out there. I think that gives like a false narrative to people that everybody is doing good, everybody doing great. When in reality is like, we have a lot of down moments, a lot of failures, a lot of bad decisions, and also we need to show that and move forward. So I think setting up goals, gaining the confidence, and then go bigger and not be afraid of failure. Yeah.
For sure. That's great advice and great lessons. I think last question that's also related to advice and kind of tips. What would you say to someone who maybe is considering doing a triathlon, but doesn't know or is scared to kind of take the first step? What would you tell them to do?
I mean, triathlon, it's really, really fun sport. It's a lifestyle. Like if you start training for triathlon, you're gonna like know it before racing that it's really it's good for you, for your health, and also for all your aspects of life. Racing is just that outcome that comes at the end. And I know, like, since the first race I did, people get so excited, like when the guns is off, like people, they just go crazy, like as if it's the race is like 100 meter. So just let those people go crazy, especially in the swim. If you have some issue with swimming, just let people go and start swimming to gain their confidence. And as you transition to bike and run, also like people, whenever they start the bike or the run, they go very crazy, they go very fast. So pace yourself, have a good nutrition plan, and enjoy it. It's really, that's it. It's very simple. Like even Ironman, a lot of people, they are afraid of Ironman distance. Ironman is just about pacing yourself and not worry about other people, what they are doing. Because people, they just go crazy, they're excited, the adrenaline and all that stuff. Just pace yourself, have a good nutrition plan, and enjoy it. And you're going to finish eventually. Yeah.
Great advice. I can tell how much fun you have doing it just from hearing you speak about it. Like I can feel the fun coming through the Zoom.
That's really cool. Yeah.
I love it. Awesome. Well, Mohamed, this was great. Thank you so much for coming on to share your story.
Thank you for having me.
Mo, thanks so much for coming on the show to share your story. Join us next Wednesday for another episode of Adventures with Aggie featuring Dromos agency athletes.